welcome everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and I have Moon Girl here, Sarah Garcia. We're the Paranormal Girls, dolls,
Oh,
girls too. Whatever.
we're young at heart.
And breaking hearts. Yes, there you go. And today we welcome you, and we like to just say that we appreciate the following, and we appreciate you sending us messages and emails all about our guests and our shows. And like always, sending you blessings. But the big thing today is we have a very special guest, Rick McCallum. How are
Yay!
you?
We love Rick.
Yes, we do.
Yay!
So, Rick, tell us about yourself, how you got here to where you are today.
Well, that's a good question. I think I stumbled into most everything I've ever done, to tell you the truth. Ghost hunting came to me when I was 13. The stunt stuff happened to me when I was 3. My dad and mom took me to see a John Wayne movie where the wagon goes over the cliff.
Mhm.
And when we got home, we lived in a split level house, so there was stairs on the inside. And my dad and mom were watching TV. And I come around the corner in my little pedal car, just going as fast as I could. My dad's chasing me, and I went right down the stairs, launched myself down the stairs like the wagon, landed face first on the bottom, got 2 black eyes. And
Oh my God.
the old man said, "I knew right then what you were going to do."
Okay.
So that's kind of how I got here. I came out to California. I started off in Chicago, and I went to school to become a cop. And after I graduated, I became an intern in Maywood Police Department, where I was in the detective division. And I found out you meet a lot of really rotten people who shoot real bullets at you. You don't get paid very much. That didn't sound like you used my education very well. I thought to myself, well, Rick, what else is better? And I went, wait a minute, the movie business. There's beautiful people. They pay you more and they shoot fake bullets at you. I'm in. So I came out and I begged every day, oh, please hire me. Then,
Amazing.
yeah, so some people fell for it, and so that I ended up doing 40 years of stunts for movies. So
Very good.
Like
yeah,
Now,
this right here is in paint, by the way.
so, in those 40 years, did you have paranormal activity occurring?
Well, I've had 2 books worth. Ghosts Believe in Me and Spirits Are Out There and They're Waiting for You. Actually, I'm very proud to say that the first book, Ghosts Believe in Me, won the Paranormal Book of the Year award.
And
Um,
there it is. They could find it on Amazon.
Yay!
Yay.
And one thing for your listeners is that I do donate the money from the book sales to St. Jude Hospital.
Nice.
So
St. Jude Hospital too.
yeah, so I'm not trying to hustle money. Well, yeah, I am trying to hustle money, but it's for somebody else. But yeah, I've had so many experiences, and I've been really lucky enough to go to some of the most fantastic locations. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to go to Scotland
Mm.
in June, and I've got 7 real good locations lined up. So, book number 3
There you go. There you go.
coming soon.
So, tell us about some of the experiences, though, while you were doing stunt work or
Oh,
Hollywood.
well, while I was doing stunts, there actually was a place that we were on a movie set in the studio, and it was known to be haunted. And I promised I wouldn't say which one it was, but I asked, "You guys know who Tony Todd is? He
Mhm.
played Candyman." And I
Yeah.
said, "Hey, Tony, I'm going upstairs. You want to go ghost hunting?" And you know that deep voice he's got? He goes, "Oh, hell no." So I went upstairs, and the makeup girl went with me, right? All the tough guys on there, the stunt guys also, I'm not going, right? But the makeup girl goes. So we're up there and we're ghost hunting. We're getting some activity. I'm getting a K2 hits, and we're hearing voices, and we can see shadows at the end of the hall. It's pretty active. was funny. At the very end of the hall was a doorway, and you could see the light under the door, and you could see the feet going across the hallway. So that was pretty cool. But two of the actors came up and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "We're ghost hunting," right? And they said, "Well, that's cool. What does this do?" And I was telling them, the K2 meter, if it lights up, it's got a chance there might be spirits there and things like that. And then it lit up all 5 lights, and they went, "Okay, well, we're going downstairs." And then the really funny one, the security guard, and one of the actors came up, and the security guard's going, "I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in none of that." Yeah. And he says, "What's that thing for?" And I said, "Well, that picks up energy." And they said, "Well, what else?" They said, "Well, we just saw some shadows at the other end. We've heard voices." And he goes, "Well, if those lights go off, what does that mean?" I said, "Spirits with you," right? And he goes like this. He goes, "Really?" He says, "I'm not afraid of spirits." And it goes off all 5 lights, and both of them turned around and ran away. And I have it on video where you can hear them running down the stairs. So that was one of the funniest things that happened. But it was a very active place. But I've been in some places that have just been so ridiculously haunted. The house I lived in Texas, for one, was just stupid haunted. We would have people stay over. It was my dad's house. We'd have people stay over, and we wouldn't tell them it was haunted. And in the morning, we'd be having breakfast, and they'd be going, you mean our house is haunted? Yes. Yeah, we know, right? So one of the funniest things that ever happened there, my little brother, he was about 13. He came down to visit from Idaho, and he's yelling, "Yeah, there's no ghosts in here. There's no ghosts in here." Right? And I said, "Yes, there are." Right? And he goes, and he reaches up and he slaps me in the back of the head. And he says, "And tell him to get me." He takes off running through the kitchen. Right? And I take off running after him. So he goes running around the through the living room. And he goes up to the dining room. And you know how you always have that extra chair on the wall, for the dining thing?
Right.
As he's running around the thing, I yell, "Get him, ghosts!" And he looks back at me, and as he did, the chair flew off the wall and landed sideways and tripped him. And he went flying face first onto the ground and slid along the ground into the kitchen, right near where my stepmother was standing, right? And she just looks down at him sliding in the room, and she just goes. But he jumps up and he starts screaming. He goes, "They really do listen to you. They really do." I said, "Yeah, they really do. So knock it off."
Tell us about Hollywood Ghost Hunters.
You mean these guys?
Yeah.
Well, that is a group. There's a bunch of us, but most people only think of myself, Kane Hodder, who plays Jason Voorhees in the Friday the 13th, and Victor Crowley in all the Hatchet movies. And then R.A. Mihailoff, that cuddly little 6'5", 340-pound guy who played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And then there's me, who's played a lot of monsters. So we always say that the dark is afraid of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go into buildings and we got to go to different parts because I weigh 240. Kane's about that. R.A.'s like 12 people put together. So we always have to go to different sides so we don't tip over the building.
Oh Lord! So how long has that group been around, and what exactly have you been doing?
Believe it or not, we started in 2006.
Oh wow!
Nice.
Yeah, I just realized that last night because I was talking about the movie where it started. We were in Mansfield Prison, which is very haunted, and we were there for 2 weeks filming the movie. So Kane and I had the run of the place. We were going all over the place. And I never knew that Kane liked to ghost hunt, right? And he never knew that I did. We never talked about it. But we're walking along through late one night, way back in the cell blocks. If you've ever seen it, it's as creepy as you can imagine. It's like 5 stories high and all these rusty, cells. And we're walking along, and he says, "Let's ghost hunt." So this was kind of interesting. I went up on the second floor, and I'm walking along, and I feel drawn into this one cell. So I go in there and it feels like someone's squeezing my chest. I mean, you can't feel the squeeze, but you feel like you're actually, having a hard time breathing and stuff. So I told him what it was, and he goes, "Well, mark it, and we'll send some other people, see if they get that." And I said, "Mark it? What am I going to mark it with?" Right? So I looked up above the door frame, and there was a Sharpie. There was an X above the door. Right? And I was like, okay. So I went and I looked on each side, and there was no X's. So this was the only one that had it. And I went, okay, so it's marked. Well, he sent some other people up there the next day, and they said the same thing. But the weird thing was, a couple months later, I was back at my apartment. I was watching Ghost Hunters, and they were in Mansfield. And the one guy, they're saying, this room is so haunted. This room is so haunted. And they said, well, let's mark it. And the guy puts a black X above the door. And I was like,
There you go.
there's like 1,000 cells in there, and all of us went to the same one. So that was pretty cool. But we saw a black shape way at the end of the hall, and Kane was getting all ready to go flying after it, right? And what was funny is that we're walking down, and I see it, and I turned to tell him, hey, there's something down there, and he's gone. And I was like, oh, this is just great. Even the big scary Jason guy runs away, right? It turned around, he went around this way, and he was taking off after it. I was like, whoa, hang on a second. Kane would go up and try and tackle it and probably kill himself running into the wall. But that's where it started, because I always wanted to have a ghost hunting group. But you guys know what this is like. You know, everybody's going, you know, people are going, doo, 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 and there's a noise and they go, whoop, whoop, whoop. Like that. Not Kane. Something happens and he's like, he keeps scaring the ghosts away. So that was a pretty good place. But that's where we actually started Hollywood Ghost Hunters.
Nice.
Now, you know, we went out a bunch of places. We went to Sloss Furnace, which is extraordinarily haunted, Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, Waverly Sanitarium. We went to Linda Vista Hospital. You know, we were getting pretty active, but then RA moved to Pennsylvania. Kane moved to another state. So we're all in different states. So, and Kane's extraordinarily busy doing movies all the time. And I'm over in Scotland a lot, right? So we haven't had a chance to really ghost hunt lately. You know, they ghost hunt with other people, and I do too. And I'm actually a member of Scottish Paranormal. So when I go there, I'm always, you know, got plenty to do when I get to Scotland. That's why I go there. But yeah, the group is still alive, but we just got to find a real good place to, you know, what we generally used to do if we were on a movie, we'd ghost hunt what was ever on the location, you know.
And it's kind of difficult when we like ghost hunt too, because everyone's from different places. I'm all the way in South Texas, and like me and Glenda wanted to go do one too for the show. She's in Pennsylvania, so the timing, or she's busy or I'm busy, and when it's a bigger group, it's so hard to get everyone at the same time. But our love of paranormal never subsides, and we're still planning on going forward and doing more investigations soon too. Fingers crossed.
Somebody asked me one time, they said, what do you think about provoking? I said, I don't like it at all. And and the guy says, well, why not? I said, if I came over to your house and talked to you like you were just talking to the spirits, would you want me to stay? He goes, no, man, I get really mad. And I said, that's my point. Shut up. Right. And then somebody asked me on a podcast, what would you do if you saw somebody faking evidence? And I said, oh, that's real simple. The next time I went back there, I just ghost hunt them. Most people don't catch that, but it's like when you go like this. Now tell me you can't breathe when I'm doing this, right?
Right.
That hurt. How about this? You know.
Maybe it's not enough. You need a little more.
A little more.
A little more. Well, if you ever decide to go to Pennsylvania, there is a Waverly Cemetery.
Is there really?
Yes, and it is. It's very active, and especially in the older section. It's not only active, but it kind of calls. There's some spirits there that actually call you into it. So if you're riding by on the road, you actually hear somebody saying, "Come in here. We want to talk." So,
Linda, come in here. We want to talk.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time I heard it, I was like, no, not today. It's okay. That's a little too loud.
We just text back and forth a while so I get comfortable, and then I'll come in.
Right.
You know, I was in Scotland, and these two young girls came up to me. I was way back in this old-time cemetery, and the fog was coming in. It was like midnight or 1 a.m. And these two young girls came up, and they were just terrified, right? And the one girl goes, we're really scared. Can we walk with you? And I said, sure, no problem. And then I said, yeah, I understand why you're scared. I used to get scared in graveyards when I was alive. You know what? Young girls, young girls are really fast. Look like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. Well, Moon Girl's been with me. She knows what I'm like.
Well, I met you also in Vegas, and I remember.
Remember that.
Yeah, so it was interesting.
Well, it was easy to remember you because we were like the only two people in the building.
Yes.
And the height difference is huge.
And the height difference is huge.
Well, I did trip over once. I mean, I just fell out and boom, down I went.
Tiny but mighty, Glenda.
Yeah, that's. Go ahead, Moon Girl. Didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, go ahead. I was saying you said you're gonna like do some things in Scotland in a few. So what do you plan on doing over there? What investigations or what locations are you planning on going over there?
Well, one of the places is one of my favorite places. It's in both of my books, Balgony Castle. And I've gotten so many different things there. And like I say, I'm a member of Scottish Paranormal, so we get a good group there. And this will be the first time I'll actually have been able to stay there overnight. So
Nice.
So that's going to be fun. And then I'm doing, for those people who are Outlander fans, there's a place called Coolross Palace. And me and a couple of my friends are going to be able to ghost hunt that. And when I was on a tour, we went in there, and a friend of mine is the manager, right? I'd never been there before. And we walked in, and she's giving us a private tour as we're walking along. And I was in there 10 minutes, and I saw a full-body apparition walk by. I mean, it was like, right? And they all said, what are you looking at? I said, the guy that just walked by. Right? And I walked into the other room. There's nobody there, right? So I'm looking forward to see if I can find that rascal when I get back there. There's other places, too. There's Torwood Castle I'm going to go to. There's a place called Touchwood Inn, which is supposed to be really, really haunted. I'm going to stay 3 days there. It's up in the Highlands. That ought to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not wearing a kilt. I keep telling them. My legs are old. It's terrible being a Scotsman who's allergic to wool. I would have froze to death back in the old days. But yeah, that's some of the places I've got hooked up. Trying to remember the other ones because there's 7 altogether.
Oh wow, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long do you plan on being there?
A month.
Nice.
Oh, that's a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to go for a month every year. I keep trying to get one of those sassy lassies with a classy chassis to pay attention to me. Hasn't worked yet. Girl asked me one time, they said, why aren't you married? It's 2 reasons. They said, what? I said, girls see me and they hear me talk. Pretty much kills the whole dynamic.
He's very charming, ladies, and he's free.
Well, not free, but I'm reasonable. No, but I look so much forward to going there. I mean, so many things have happened to me in Scotland. There's a place called Calton Hill, which has all the like monuments on top of this hill. When you go on top, you can see the bay. You can see Holyrood Palace. That's the Queen's Palace. You can see Arthur's Seat, which is the big mountain where they say King Arthur went to the top.
Mm-hmm.
You know, over in Scotland, you know, King Arthur is like George Washington slept here. Every place you go, Mary Queen of Scots slept there, and so did King Arthur. Right? That's everywhere you go. But it's really cool because you can see everything through there. You can see all the monuments. You can see the Scots Monument. You can see the Edinburgh Castle. Everything from where you're at. And I was with a girl named Lori Dorsey who had stayed a couple days after the tour. So I was showing her some of the other places. And we're walking up. It's like 75 yards, you know, and it's this one. It's all concrete going up with a rail in the middle, right? And we're walking up. There's nobody else on the thing. We can't see anybody else. And I hear a voice right behind me that goes, "Pardon me." Sounded mad, right? So I turned around and I looked, and there's absolutely nobody standing behind me. And if you see this thing, it's only maybe 4 yards across,
Right.
and it's all hedges. So there's nowhere you could miss anybody. They'd have to be on the asphalt. And Lori was with me. She was right behind me. I turned around and I said, "Did you hear that?" She goes, she's still looking at me. She hasn't turned around yet. And I said, "Yeah, I heard the guy say, 'Pardon me.'" I said, "Turn around, look." She goes, "There's nobody here." Oh, there ain't. So But that was really interesting because it was like right in my ear. Like this guy was mad, like I was taking too long. I mean, go on the other side. There's nobody on this thing. Get away from me, right? But that was interesting.
Have you
Those are-
ever truly been like frightened in one of your investigations, or like even on a personal, like at your house? You said that you lived in a haunted house, like personal experience.
Yeah, there's been a couple there that really scared me. I had a dog that weighed about 180 pounds, Great Dane, huge. And that dog loved me because I saved him from the executioner, right? Because, no, they said, I got to tell you this story about the dog. He was huge. And went down to my dad's house, and he had a big house with a great big backyard. And as I was growing up, we'd had a Great Dane. So I told him this was 1979. I said, hey, Bob, why don't we get a Great Dane? And he goes, well, look around, see if you can find one. So there's only one place that had them, was a lady who bred dogs. And I called her and I said, yeah, do you have Great Danes? I'm looking to get one. She goes, well, they start at $500. Now, in 1979, that was a chunk. It's still, you know, yeah, back then it was bigger chunk. But I told my dad there were times in his life when he had money. There were other times when he owed money. I just happened to be one of the times he had some. So he goes, well, let's go look. So we go out and they bring out all these show dogs that come out and they look like Brad Pitt looking off into the distance. You know, look at me. I'm so pretty. Although Brad Pitt in person isn't like that, from what I hear. I've never met him. But finally she goes, well, that's about it. And I'm smart enough to know that if somebody says that's about it, there's another one somewhere. And I said, well, bring out the other one. She goes, I can't. He's vicious. He fights all the other dogs. He bites everybody who gets near him. I said, well, bring him out, right? She goes, I'm telling you, he's vicious. And I said, well, bring him out anyway, right? So she brings him out. Here's this magnificent dog. He looks like he's from the Calcan cover, right? He's just gorgeous, but he's got a muzzle on. And he comes out, and this dog's a moose. I mean, he's huge, right? So he comes out, and she's holding him. And I'm looking him in the eyes, and he's looking at me, and I'm not seeing any vicious in him at all. I just see somebody been mistreated, right? And I don't mean by the lady, because the lady was a professional dog person.
Right.
I just think, some of the other dogs didn't like him because he was big or something, and he got an attitude, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm looking at him, and I knelt down, and I mean, he's like face to face with me, about 5 feet away. And I looked at her and I said, can you take the muzzle off? And she goes, oh, no. I said, look, if he bites me, it's on me, right? She goes, okay. So I swear to God, this is exactly what happened. I'm down on one knee, and I went, his name was Tubby. I mean, this dog was all muscle, and they called him Tubby, right? So I went, Tubby, come here, right? He just looked at me, and I went, come here, right? And he walks up, and he puts his nose like this, right in front of me, right here. And the lady is just pooping bricks up there. She knows that dog's going to eat my face, right? And I swear, I'll never forget this. He's looking at me, and he took a step forward, and he leaned his head on my shoulder and just leaned on me, right? I just started petting him, right? And I pushed him back, on his chest. I pushed him back. I said, sit. And he looked at me, and I went smack on his butt. And I said, sit. And he sat down, and I rubbed his head and everything else. I said, good boy, right? And the lady's looking at me, and she goes, I've done this for 30 years. I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen a human and an animal act like that. Mm-hmm. It happens to me a lot. Right? And I'm allergic to dogs now, believe it or not. It's terrible. Except for the girl who lives downstairs. She lets the puppy come visit me. Right?
I thought you were going to say something completely different.
No. I don't pick on women like that. I'm a gentleman. At least I try to be. But when we got back in the car, this dog just leaned on me the whole way. But I asked her, I said, well, how much do you want for this dog? And she goes, I'm giving him to you. She goes, we really were going to put him down. Wow. Right? So I think he knew that I was his last shot. But everywhere I went, that dog was attached to me, wherever I went, right? It was kind of cool. But the scary part is I'm sitting in the living room. Everybody else is out of the house, and I'm cross-legged watching TV, and the dog is just... Right? And all of a sudden he pops up and he's laying like the Sphinx, how that looks. Uh-huh. And all right, I know I'm in here somewhere. There I am. But he pops up and he's laying there and he's looking at me, and his eyes slant and his ears went back, and he went that super deep growl, and he's looking right at me and he's going right. And then he gets about a quarter of the way up and he starts shaking. and he's just going the teeth, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to duke it out with this gigantic dog. Here's the vicious coming out, right?
Right.
And I'm looking, and I just realized that he's not looking at me. He's looking over my shoulder, right? And I figured there's a burglar, right? And I just went, Tubby, get him. And all I saw was this tan streak just go, right? I jumped up to help him, but there's, see what's going on. And it was so weird. All I saw was the back of him, and he was up on his back legs, and his front paws were going like this at the air, and he was biting and barking, just going crazy. And finally, he came down, and he was facing away from me, and he looked sideways, and stuff. And then finally, he just turned around and looked at me like, okay, we're good. And I don't know what he saw, but he saw something, and he didn't like it. He didn't like that it was sneaking up on me, whatever it was. But I'll tell you one other thing. The very first thing that happened to me when I went down there with my friend Tom, and my dad was taking one of his salesmen back to the bar to get his car, which was a real good idea. Might want to try calling a cab. That might be better. But anyway, I asked him, where am I going to sleep? He said, in this room. So I went in there, and it looked like a ladies' room because it had, the canopy bed, right? And there, right at the foot of the bed, there was the moon girl looking in the window. No, moonlight coming in.
I've ever seen. Yes.
Yeah. So it had a little slider lock on it, and I locked the door, and I laid down, and I hear. So naturally, I'm laying there, and I stood up, and I, what the hell was that? Right? So I'm listening, and I hear. Now I'm getting a little freaked out, right? I'm like, what is that, right? And I had only been there for a little bit, and I wonder if he's got a dog, right? So I looked under the bed, I opened the closet, nothing. I went, eh. So I laid back down, and I hear, and I look up, and on the wall, there's one of the returns from the air conditioner. And I was like, oh, it's just the air conditioner turning off. And I went, not 3 times, right? So I sat up, and I'm looking around, and right here on my neck and right under my ear, I could feel the heat, and it went right there. And I jumped out of bed, and I was trying to get out of there, right? I mean, I'm out of here. That was good to see you. I got to go and see you. Bye. I couldn't find the slider because it was dark over there. So I just turned the handle, and I went like this and snapped the door frame. It busted from the top and on the side, just busted loose. And I went outside, and I'm standing out front. My dad lived in a cul-de-sac, and I'm out there for a few minutes. And here comes my dad and Tom. My dad gets out of the car, and he looks at me, and he starts laughing. He goes, he got you, didn't he? And I went, what do you mean? He goes, ah. And I went, you know about that? He goes, happens all the time. So, this place was extremely haunted. I'd love to go back there and ghost hunt it again. But, some people, that might really freak somebody out. I don't want to mess with somebody's house, if they're not really into it. But I would love to go back there.
Mm. That sounds very interesting. And the fact that you had experienced still kind of shook you up because you felt it.
Yeah, when something, no, I mean, it was hot breath. It was like, somebody right here. And it was like, that's it. I'm out. I am out. The other thing that happened there is my dad had his office was right across from my bedroom. And his office had windows on each side that were about that wide and went from floor to ceiling. And it was the backyard out there. And I walked out, and I always turned off the lights and locked all the doors before I went to bed. And I turned out the light, and I saw a head with horns looking in the window. And I went, ah! Right? I'm like, ah! And I flipped on the light, and it was Tubby standing out there, with the great cane ears looking in the window, being backlit. So I'm going, oh, great. So I turn off the light, and I start to turn out of the room. And behind me, I hear, I'm like, I'm not even looking. Just keep going. Yeah, there were so many things that happened there. It was freaky.
Now, was the house really, really old? It sounds like it was. No,
it wasn't. No, it was like a tract house. So it wasn't really that old. But the people who lived next door said, yeah, it's funny. Nobody else has ever lived in here longer than 3 months.
Oh. Okay. I wonder why.
Yeah, exactly. I wonder why. So Yeah, I've had so I've been so lucky. I've gotten to go to a great deal of the real iconic locations,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them that was really cool was the birdcage down in Tombstone. Now everybody knows the history of Tombstone because Val Kilmer and Kurt Russell and Sam Elliott were in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So every girl in America watched it because Sam Elliott was in it. But anyway, they like
My
his voice.
mom.
Yeah, well, they really like his voice. But anyway, I got to go with the owner on a private ghost hunt at the birdcage, and I put my night vision camera down in the poker room. Now, if you guys have never seen pictures of the poker room, there's a poker game that went on continuously, and I don't mean they closed at night and they started up continuously for over 8 years.
Mm.
As soon as somebody dropped out, somebody else went in. Well, right next to the thing, there's a little walkway, and then there's like 4 rooms for the prostitutes to work, right next to the poker room. I mean, it was bizarre, but yeah, very convenient. I just won $100. A sailor.
Right.
Girls weren't stupid.
One stop.
Yeah. They got the booth, they got the girls in poker. But I set my night vision camera on the thing so you could see the whole room of the poker room. And I started to walk upstairs to go, do the ghost hunting with Billy. And I stopped on one stair and I said, did you get killed down here? And I went up another stair and I waited and I said, did you kill anybody down here? And I went up and I ghost hunted. And what was very strange is I had 9 pieces of equipment because it's a big place. I had set them around and things like that. Within 45 minutes, every piece was dead, every one of them, and all new batteries, all freshly charged.
Mm.
So we hung around for a while, ghost hunted a little more. But when I got back home, I was listening and I was going over the night vision thing. And as we're walking down the stairs, you can hear Billy and I talking. And just as we start to get to the bottom, you hear a Hispanic voice. Now, that's not unusual because Mexico and Tombstone are like right next to each other. Matter of fact, there was probably more Hispanic people than there were Anglos at the time. But anyway, as I'm walking down there, I hear a Hispanic voice and it says, I had to. Very clear, right? So it had to be the answer to, did you kill anybody?
Right.
So next time I went back, I sent a message to Billy. I said, Billy, can I get in for a little bit? Because I got to see if this guy talks to me again. Right? He goes, well, I've only got like a half an hour. There's tours coming in. But, you'd have to be here like in the next 10 minutes. I said, good, because I'm at the front door. Yeah. So I walked in and he sent me downstairs. And take a guess how long it took me till he answered me something else.
5 minutes.
38 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah. I went down there and I said, hey, last time I was here, excuse me. I'm not sure I know anybody named Spam, but anyway, nor would I want to. But I went back down there and I asked him, I said, last time I was here, I asked you if you'd kill somebody and you said you had to. Did you see anybody else get killed? And he goes, yes. So I have friends down there right now and I keep telling them, go down to the poker room. There's a paranormal thing going on down there today. So
Nice.
a bunch of my friends are down there. So
Cool.
it's kind of interesting. And I'll tell you one other one that was really interesting was the Houdini house. Now it wasn't really Houdini's house; it's what they call it.
Yeah.
And because he used to stop by there once in a while. But anyway, me and one of my guys, a guy named Ed, wasn't because we have other people. Ed played one of the Visigoths in the Capital One commercials.
Okay.
And he's another 300-pound guy. It's like everybody we know. Danielle Harris is a member of our group, but she's like this big, so she helps us out a little bit. Danielle Harris was the girl in Halloween in the clown suit attacking the guy with the scissors.
Mm-hmm.
And that she would do that. That girl's not afraid of nothing. But anyway, we went through there, and Ed and I were downstairs. As we walk in, there's two beds, and I put down my K2 meter, which is always in my hand, and my voice recorder because we've been there quite a while walking around. So I sat on the futon just to take a break, And Ed picks up my K2 meter and he walks into the bathroom and he says, I'm going to get a base reading. Right. So he goes, hey, this thing's starting to go off. So I get up, we go in there, and it was amazing. I mean, and I didn't film it. Live and learn. I mean, but it was amazing. This guy actually threw us out. We were able to figure out that he'd been a miner. There had been a quartz mine there. And he just actually threw us out. I said, do you like us being here? Would you like us to leave? Bam, 5 lights. And I said, I'll tell you what, you do that, all 5 lights again, we'll leave. Bam, 5 lights. And I went. And Ed says to me, he goes, what are we going to do? I said, we're going to leave. So we stopped to pick up my voice recorder. And I turned it off and we were standing there saying, wow, that was intense, because we had a good interaction. And all of a sudden it goes all 5 lights again. I said, are you telling us to leave? All 5 lights. I said, we're out of here. Right. So we went upstairs. There was a guy from a newspaper who was writing an article about it. We told him what happened. He goes, oh, I'd love to do that. And I said, well, Ed, take him down there. I said, I would leave. Right. So they're down there like 15 minutes. And the guy comes up and he goes, you threw us out too. But I was listening to my voice recorder. I'm not the best at listening to stuff. I'll go there and I'll have my ghost hunt and, never listen to the stuff half the time. But I was listening to this, and you hear, it's only like a 6-second clip. You hear Ed say, I'm going to get a base reading. And then you hear, get back here, punk. No. I was like, wow, that is one angry little fella there. Yeah, get back here, punk. No. So that one was pretty good too.
Have you ever gotten hurt on an investigation? Like, has the spirit messed with you, touched you, bruised you, or anything like that?
Twice. At the Pioneer Saloon, which is right outside Vegas. Mm-hmm. I went in there. We were doing an investigation, in one of the rooms, there was a guy who got shot for cheating at cards. And he'd been a boxer. He's like a real tough guy, so he never thought he was going to have to pay the price. And some dude just blasted his butt right there at the table. Well, I was sitting in his seat, and we sit down, and there's several ladies that were murdered in that place, and they seem to have taken a liking to me. Every time I go there, they talk to me. It's funny. Even the lady that runs it, she goes, "Yeah, those girls really like you." And I'm like, "Well, wish the live ones would." But anyway, I'm sitting there, and the tables are round, so the girl sitting next to me had no place to put her K2 meter down because there was, because it was round, there was nothing in front of her. So she put hers next to mine, and all this equipment is there. Nothing's going off except for 10 lights in front of me. Right? And Jill, who is the haunted lockdown director, says, "Boy, the ladies seem to really like you." And just before that, I felt like I was going to throw up on the table. I've never gotten that sick instantly, but I felt like I was on fire. And this is actually on video. I wasn't taking it. Somebody else did. And I just went, I'm not so sure they do. And you can tell that something's wrong, right? And she goes, what's the matter? I said, feel my forehead. And I expected her to say, God, you're like 400 degrees. She goes, you feel like a block of ice. So the girl next to me reaches over and touches me on this arm. And she goes, wow. She says, that's like touching dry ice. Christ, I've never seen anything like that. And I said, guys, I got to go outside. I'm afraid I'm going to get sick. So I go walking outside. And as I walk by, this girl like 1.5 feet, 2 feet away from me, looking the other direction. And she says, I can feel how cold he is from here. So something really grabbed onto me there. It really was making me sick. So finally, I just walked back in and I said, guys, I've never done this, but I'm going to have to leave. I don't want to ruin this. I'm really sick, right? And I start to go away. And for some reason, I stopped and I turned around. I says, great meeting y'all, good hunting. And off I go. Well, they send me a tape of this, a video. And when I'm sitting at the table and she says, those girls seem to really like you. And I said, I'm not so sure they do. You can hear a girl's voice go, we do, right, on this tape. So when I come back in, I said, I'm going to have to, I got to go, right? And I turn away and you hear a man's voice say, turn Rick back, right? And I stop and I turn and I look back, right? And I said, have a good hunt. And off I go. And on the tape, it says, release him. That's pretty interesting. Now, I didn't say that's what they said. I didn't do that. The lady put it in there, and I didn't really go,
Right.
but it sounds like it to me, So, but that was pretty cool. And then nobody believes this story, and I don't blame him. Was what happened to me at Lep Castle. Lep Castle is supposed to be the most haunted place in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we went there, and we got there an hour early. They were having a party in the castle, so we were out on the street, 200 yards away from the castle, and we just driven there. So we get out, and the guys go to use the bushes, and I'm just standing there. It was kind of cold and windy. Reminded me of Chicago. I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I'm going to stand here for a while. And they get back in the car, and I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, the way I described it, I felt like a spear went through my eye and out the back of my head, and I could feel it go. And I grabbed my eye, and water started gushing out of my eye and everything else. And the first thing I thought is like, my eyeball exploded. Where would the fluid come from, right? And I started staggering backwards because the pain was like boom, like getting hit by Mike Tyson. So I started staggering back, and I looked down at the ground, and I was like, well, Rick, you've been doing stunts for 40 years. Fall down while you can, instead of, if this actually knocks you out, you're going to do a nice face plant into the concrete. So I started to go to the ground, and I heard a voice in my head said, if you hit the ground, you'll never get up. So being the smart guy I am, I went and switched gears. We will not be going to the ground on this episode. So I get up, and I get to the car, and I'm hanging on the car, and one of the guys gets out, Allie, and he jumps out. He goes, man, what's going on? I said, it felt like a spear went through my eye, right? So he gives me some water, and I go behind the car so nobody can run me over. But we're in the middle of Ireland, right around midnight, out in the boonies. There may be one car that's out there, so I can lay there on the ground all day and it'd be okay. But I'm still behind there, and he says, well, come on and get in there. I said, no, man, I'm kind of lightheaded. Just let the wind and the cold. I'll feel better in here than I will in the car. So he gets in the car, and then in the first book, this is in the first book, it's the last chapter. Whenever something happens, I let other people put in what they saw besides, and I write it and they put it in too. So it's not just me telling a story, because if you're an author, you can write anything you want. But when the other people are also saying, well, I saw this, and this is what I thought was going on. Well, they looked in the rearview mirror and they didn't see me. So Allie gets out, and he sees me hanging off the car by one hand. And he says, according to him, he says, I was totally white and I was struggling to breathe. So they actually picked me up, they put me back in the car, and by now it's time to go in. So we pull up right in front, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, geez. And Greg, one of the leaders of Scottish Paranormal, as we pull up, and he goes, I just saw a guy walk by us, and there's nobody here, right? And it was all on rocks, on gravel. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they said, come on inside. I said, no, guys, just let me sit here in this car and lean back and relax. Now, I know this sounds like BS, and it's not, right? I get in there, and I'm just laying back, and I'm like, wow, what the hell is going on, right? My eyes still hurting, the water coming. And all of a sudden, my vision started to go like this, side to side. And I was like, what is that, right? And, as I'm sitting there, all of a sudden, you know what the iris is when it goes zoom and it closes? That's what my vision started doing. I went, oh, this isn't good. This is not good, right? And for some reason, I know I was right. I was dying. There's no doubt about it. I was dying in the thing. And right then, you guys have both been on airplanes, right? Mm-hmm. When you touch the toilet in an airplane, it goes, woof, right? Mm-hmm. From here down, all my energy just went woof, out of my body. And I felt it. And I'm just laying there like this. And my vision, I can barely see it. It's wobbling in a little spot. And I'm like, and I thought to myself, this is it, right? But it's so funny. You don't get scared. You just, it's very serene. You're like, okay, bound to happen sometime, right? So I don't know why, but I said out loud, I said, I've got to do a lot more than other people have. I've gotten to see things. I've been blessed with so many things. If today is my day, I'm okay with it. And about 2 minutes later, all my energy started coming back. My vision started coming back and everything else. And I was like, what just happened? So they come and get me, and they take me out, and I go into And I sit down for about half an hour, right? And they're talking to me, and I said, guys, I'm feeling fine. But one thing I left out, I just forgot about this. When Allie got out and he saw me hanging off the car, he said, my first thought was, if Rick falls and hits the ground, he'll never get up, which is the same thing I heard. Right? Well, anyway, I feel better. We go ghost hunting. End of story, you would think. A couple weeks later, one of the guys sends me a message. He goes, you're not going to believe this. We've been at the Hellfire Club before. And while we were there, two of the guys started feeling like they're getting a headache behind their right eye, right? Which I think is a spirit was trying to get into them. And they had enough blockage to keep them away. But me, I opened myself up, right? And you get a lot of good evidence, but sometimes you get stuff you don't want. But anyway, he calls me up and he goes, I'm not going to believe this. I said, what? He goes, I just found out that, right near the Hellfire Club there, two guys had a duel and one guy got shot through the right eye and died. So I kind of figured that spirit attached to me, trying to show me what happened to him. And when I finally said, if today's my day, and I'm okay with it, that the spirit went, no, that's not what I wanted. I just wanted to see this. And he backed away from me. And then right after that, I was like, oh, well, that was interesting. It's there's things you can get involved in there that's a little more than you might be asking for.
Yes.
But the guys were really afraid. They went in, they asked the Lord of the Manor, they said, how long would it take to get an ambulance here? And this was in the book, in their own writing. Right. And they said, why? And he says, because we think Rick is dying. And Rick was out in the car and he's pretty sure he was, right? But it's just some of the strange things are. But then they asked me, Scottish Paranormal is one of the most recognized groups in the world. Matter of fact, one of the guys is on Haunted Scotland. Ryan, he's one of the leaders of the place, him and Chris Fleming. But it's so weird, some of the things that happen, with you. And these guys are like, world-class guys. And they told me when I was inside, and they said, we thought you were going to die, and we didn't know what to do. And I said, really? They said, what? I said, you really, all you ghost hunting guys didn't know what to do? Right? I said, you need to ghost hunt the crap out of me before I get cold. What's wrong with you? When are you going to get another chance like this? Guy who wants to talk to you, right there, he's going out, 8, 9, 10, start talking, I'm in. So that was funny and not so funny. But scary, but it's scary that it happened. And people ask me, they say, aren't you afraid? Sorry that happened. I said, not in the least. Not in the least. I said, it proves to me so much.
Yeah.
That now I'm not afraid of anything except for snakes and sharks and girls. Not that they're all the same, but they're just,
Yes, it's very hard because you want to experience it, so you want to be open. So you put yourself in that. I have so far been very blessed that I haven't experienced it, but everybody around me experiences scratches or being pushed and all that other stuff. And I'm walking in like, where do you guys go? And I'm just, so I'm very blessed on that. And just, I guess I open enough to get the experiences, but not really experience them.
Well, that's when you say you can go part way down the hallway. You go to the end. This is as far as you come.
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you another one real quickly. I was at a place called William Heath Davis House, and I was there with the San Diego Ghost Hunters. They'd invited me. And I had this girl that I liked who was a model, and she owned, several businesses and, real avid ghost hunter and pretty, right? And we're in this place. We're upstairs. We start to go downstairs. I'm going first. She's behind me. And then she goes, hey, they're doing a voice box session down there. Why don't we just sit here on the stairs and wait? Right? I said, yeah, that's a good idea. So she sits, and I'm going to sit a few steps ahead of her, right? And I go to sit down, and something shoved me in the back, and I almost went face first down the stairs. I mean, I went, whoa, and I caught myself, right? To the point where my head went so far, my face almost hit my knees, right? That's how hard it shoved me. And it's a good thing my big butt was heading towards the bottom, or it would have launched me all the way to the bottom. Well, the girl screams, right? And everybody comes running. She says, "What happened?" She says, "Rick just got shoved down the stairs." And they said, "Yeah, that was pretty interesting." But the more interesting thing was, we go down and they were sitting in the room, and the girls are still doing the spirit box, and it says, "Beware, outside, danger," right? What else did it say? It said like 5 things. Wasted, police was the other 2 things it said. So Maritza, who was the docent of the night and the head of the San Diego Ghost Hunters at the time, she goes outside. She's looking out through the window, and then I hear her say, "Hey, get away from that." So I'm like, "Oh, I'm the only guy there," right? So anyway, I pop up and I go walking over there, and there's 3 guys, and they're trying to force their way through the 8-foot gate, right? She's saying, "You can't come in here. This is private property," right? And they're saying, "We're coming in. We want the Christmas lights," right? And she says, "You can't have the Christmas lights," right? And the guy goes, "Yeah, well, we're going to come in and get them," right? And then he goes, "Who's going to stop me?" I said, "I will." And I walked down the stairs and I walked up and I said, "Beat it. You're not getting any of this stuff," right? And they're all swearing at me. They're drunk as can be, and they're swearing at me. And he goes, "You want to really take on 3 guys?" I said, "Oh, 3. You really got heroic there, didn't you?" Right? And I went, "Maritza." She goes, "What?" I said, "Open the gate." And they all went, "Wait a minute." My intimidation factor didn't work, right? So I just looked at him. I said, "You got a couple of options. Either I'm going to beat your ass, or we're going to call the cops. And they're going to arrest your drunk asses. And they'll beat it, right?" So they're all yelling. They, curse at us, flip us off, and away they go. And I turned around. There was a girl there that was with us, and she just had her arms folded up on the top. And the girl that I was with, she goes, "Weren't you scared?" I said, "You see the girl on the top standing there with her arms crossed?" She goes, "Yeah." I said, "She's an NCIS agent. I'm pretty sure she had something in her hand." So I had some backup up there,
That always
Always
helps.
good. Always good.
Yeah, but here's the big part. After it had told us all this stuff, that's exactly what was outside. Danger, wasted, police, right? All that came true. Well, I take the girl and I'm going to walk her back to her car, right? Because San Diego at night can be sketchy, obviously. Just saw that, right? So we're walking, and she's pretty, and she makes me cookies, and she's pretty. So we go walking down there. It's probably about 3 or 4 blocks away, and my phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's Maritza, and she goes, "You're never going to believe what we just heard." And I said, "Okay, what'd you hear?" And she goes, "We're going to play it for you." So she and I are listening, and Brandy's like really getting in there, right? And I'm listening, and it says, "Who pushed Rick?" And it goes, "Spirits." Right? She goes, "Spirits. Well, we said it was okay for you to mess with Rick, but spirits, how many spirits pushed Rick?" And it goes, 5. Right? And she says, "Well, why 5 spirits?" And it says, "He's big." And she has it on tape. I mean, it was hilarious, right? So anyway, I got Brandy back to her car. I got my cookies, and off she went. But weird stuff happens to me all the time. I mean, it's why I keep going to places. Everywhere I go, there's stuff that happens. So, well, not everywhere. There's been a lot of times I've sat inside an empty castle in Scotland, on the cold floor for hours and nothing happened. But I've been to places. I've walked in the door and it was like my birthday party. Of course, I've never had a birthday party, so I don't really know what they're like. I'm serious. I've never had a birthday party. So that was.
You have to throw one for
No,
Rick.
no, I'm fine. I hate my birthday. I always hide. I've had 2 cars stolen and was in a car wreck on my birthday.
Oh.
No, I had 2 car wrecks and a car stolen on my birthday.
No.
Well, so maybe
I
it's
stay inside, hide in the closet with the covers over me. Wait till it's over.
time to change that energy. That's
Yeah.
all.
Indeed.
The acting, you have about 70 credits under your belt.
Right.
Oh, there's more than that now. If you
70 plus, I guess.
Yeah, no, if you take into like web series and the live shows of it, it's probably around 90.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, I've done quite a few things. I mean, I actually there's a thing you can find online. It's called "Sexy Lightsaber Fight," and it was
We'll look
yeah,
it up.
no, it's actually really cute. It was for the Star Wars challenge at Comic-Con. Now, Comic-Con is pretty big, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, they asked me to stunt coordinate it, and it was the guys that did Hatchet. My friend Adam Green, he was directing it, and Will Barrett, who's the best cameraman, he was filming it. So anyway, we did this. I think it was the Roxy or the Rainbow, one of the famous places. It was in there, and I actually taught the girls how to lightsaber fight, and me and a couple other guys, we showed her. Couple of friends of mine are great swordsmen. But anyway, we set up a pretty good fight. But and I get there, and Adam goes, "Oh, by the way, you're playing the bartender. Get behind the bar." so I'm actually in there. But it was very nice that it actually won for the Star Wars challenge. Now you can imagine there's a lot of entries into this thing, right? And they had it won film of the year from there, and it also won Best Action.
Nice.
I liked because that was my department, right? So, and then I also stunt coordinated the Walking Dead webisode that won the Webby Award. Not because of me, I just happened to be there doing some stuff, but it had nothing to do with me. There's a few stunts here and there, but that stuff never shows up on IMDb. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I've done. As a matter of fact, if you do a movie and it doesn't come out, it doesn't show up there.
Okay.
So I've done a bunch. I've done a bunch that I guess evidently were so bad or they ran out of money. So. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
But that's where I met Kane, was on Lone Wolf McQuade in 1982.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is not paint. Really am that old.
So I'm going to have you tell us how could people reach you if they want to follow you. I know you're on Facebook.
Rick McCallum on Facebook. Hollywood Ghost Hunters on Facebook. Ghosts Believe in Me on Facebook. Those are the best ways of getting hold of me.
Okay. So,
and I answer everything that anybody sends me.
That's very good.
If you send me a message, I will send back something. Don't bother me. Leave me alone.
You'll answer it.
I do answer it, yes.
Well, it's been a pleasure. We truly appreciate you coming on. Is there any last second thing that you want to just say or talk about?
Where we can find your
Yeah, go ahead, Moon Girl. I know what you're going to say, and it's what I was going to say.
Your books, please. Where we can find your books?
On Amazon.
Right. There you go. So I'll put the first one on there, and you'll be able to find the other one right next to it. Yep. So we'll and once that third book comes out, you let us know, and we'll also put it on the description, because we could always.
Yeah, I'm writing another book. It has nothing to do with ghost hunting.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because I hate feminism, and the reason I hate feminism is because it assumes that women aren't just as good and strong as men are. And there are some women that were just fabulous warriors and heroes and everything else, and nobody ever hears about. I would like the young girls to read that instead of a lot of this other stuff, because the smartest people I ever met were women. The bravest people I ever met were women, and it's time that people start just acknowledging that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And by the way, the next time I see that guy swimming against the girl, I'm going to jump on him and slow him down. Because that ain't right. I don't care, if you're, any of that stuff, but having boys play against girls just ain't right.
Yeah.
That poor girl, she trains all her life since she's 8 years old, and she ties the guy, and they tell her, sorry, we need her for the photo, the guy for the photo op, and we only have one trophy, so we're going to give it to him.
Yeah.
Where's the fairness in any of that?
It's incredible. It really is
Even,
incredible.
even if the guy hadn't been a guy, if it was another girl and they did that, it would still be a lousy thing to do. You're both tied. You should both be the champions. You should both get a trophy. It's like, ugh.
Exactly.
But women follow me. And you know why? Because I want them to have my back.
I'm sure plenty of them do.
Well, if any of them were in front, that would probably scare me and I'd run away.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for being our guest. We appreciate you coming on.
Yes. And if you ever want to come back, when you finish writing the books, please do. Let us know.
I'll do that today. I haven't started, but I'll be right there. I'll just put it on AI. Ghost hunting on AI. I wonder if you could write a book on artificial intelligence. Hey, this is Rick McCallum of the Hollywood Ghost Hunters. I've been to all these different places. Can you write a ghost hunting book for me? Thanks. So, anyway, well, thank you for having me, and it's good to see you again, Moon Girl and Glenda.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't get that much time to talk to you in Vegas, but
no, there wasn't much time. So, but thank you, and it's a pleasure. Thank you, Moon Girl, Sarah. Beautiful as always, and goodbye, everyone. Blessings.
Don't leave, Rick.